Okay.
Hello, everyone. You've tuned into Business Today. I'm Akanksha. Today, we have with us a very special guest, Sandeep Sehgal. He is the tax partner at AKM Global, which is a tax and consultancy firm, and he's going to help us break down the TDS, which is going to be applicable on all crypto transfers from 1st of July. Thank you for joining us, sir. So, let's just dive into the questions now. So, my first question for you is going to be: could you break down for our viewers how the TDS would be deducted when investors buy or sell cryptocurrencies via a KYC compliant crypto exchange?
Yeah. Okay. First of all, many thanks to you, and a very good day to all the viewers of Ask. So, ordinarily, such deductions shall be taken care of by the exchange. In such cases, the exchange will deduct tax before transferring the amount to the sellers of VDS or cryptocurrency. Hence, the people buying and selling may need not bother about the deductions in such cases. But in a few cases, like where the exchange itself is the owner and or seller of the cryptocurrency, the buyer may need to deduct the tax for the exchange in such cases. But there too, the buyer may have an agreement in writing with the exchange that the exchange will pay the tax itself. And in that case, the buyer will not need to deduct any tax in that case. In short, generally exchanges would take care of the compliances if the transaction is carried out through them.
But what happens in the case of peer-to-peer transfers of cryptocurrencies? Does it is the tax liability on the sender or is it on the receiver?
Yeah, so the liability is on the receiver of the cryptocurrency because basically the receiver is the buyer in this case. So in case of a peer-to-peer transaction, the buyer of crypto would be paying the consideration after deducting the TDS to the seller. So the buyer will need to pay the tax and report by filing a form called form number 26QE within 30 days. The buyer will need to provide a form called 16E, which basically serves as an evidence of deduction of tax. The form would be generated online from the Traces portal of the Income Tax Department. And it is also worth noting that the buyer need not apply a TAN number in this case, which is generally required for TDS purposes. And but this kind of compliance can be done through PAN number only. So in short, the receiver will deduct and pay the tax. Besides, the tax would be deducted only when the consideration exceeds rupees 10,000 for the
Okay.
whole financial year. But in case of individual HUFs who are not into any business profession, or even if they are, but they are not subject to any audit under the income tax, this limit would be 50,000 against 10,000.
Okay, sir. But how is the aggregate consideration in a transaction computed in the case of crypto transfers? And could you please shed light on what's spoken, like what has been in the guidelines which have been latest, which were latestly released by, sorry, I'll just say the question once again. So, but what about the aggregate consideration and how is it computed as per the latest CBDT guidelines?
Yeah, so ordinarily what would happen is the TDS would be deducted from the price charged by the seller. So if additionally, I mean, if during the process, let's say the transaction is carried out through the exchange, and during the process, the exchange charges any kind of fee or GST. So that fee or GST would be deducted from the consideration, and then it would be TDS would be deducted on the net consideration. So, for example, let's say if you're selling some cryptocurrency for rupees 10,000 on the exchange, and let's say the exchange charges you a fee of rupees 100 for the transaction. So the TDS would be deducted on a net consideration of rupees 9,900.
All right, sir. All right. I just also wanted to know, is there a difference if the transfer is VDA to INR or VDA to VDA?
Yes, there would be a difference in such a case because in case of a VDA to VDA transfer, both the parties would be treated as buyer and seller.
All
Hence,
right.
both the parties need to deduct and pay the tax for each other. So
All
after the
right.
payment of their tax, they need to share the evidence of payment of tax to each other. Then only this transfer of VDA can take place. But
Okay.
there as well, I mean, there is an alternative available that if the transaction is carried out through an exchange, in that case, if the both the parties can have an agreement in writing with the exchange, and the exchange can deduct the tax from both of them and will report it accordingly. So basically, what will happen is the exchange will deduct 1% of the VDS, will convert into cash and then pay the tax.
All right, sir. Just one last question. What if a broker is involved in a crypto transfer? Would there be a difference in the way CBDT would treat it? Would there be a tax liability on the broker?
Okay, so there could be two scenarios. Let's say when broker itself is the owner of the cryptocurrency and is selling it. So in that case, it would be the broker would be treated as any other seller, and like I mentioned earlier,
Yes.
the TDS would be deducted accordingly. But let's say if the broker is only doing the broking transaction, in such a case, and himself is not the owner of the cryptocurrency which is being traded.
Yes.
So in that case, what would happen is generally the broker and the exchange are required to deduct the tax for the amount which is being paid to the seller. But there too, I mean, if the exchange and broker can have an agreement in writing, and only the broker will pay the tax. So, but this would happen, let's say, in a scenario where the transaction is being done for cash consideration. But let's
Okay.
say if there is an exchange of EDS between two parties. Let's say I am selling Ethereum and the other person is giving me Bitcoin or any other
Okay.
cryptocurrency. So basically, the transaction is in kind. So in that case, what would happen is, uh, as mentioned in my reply to the previous question, that the exchange and broker will need to pay the tax, and
Yes.
there to an agreement or something, the liability can be shifted to the exchange for the deduction of tax.
All right, sir. Right. Thank you so much, sir, for comprehensively explaining the new guidelines which are on the TDS of crypto transfers. Thank you so much for joining us and taking out the time. Thank you,
Yes,
sir.
sir. Thank you. Thank you.
If you like the video, do like, comment, share and subscribe.